I am not unmuted. Welcome!
There we go.
To another edition of Strange New Pod. I am your cadet master, Giraffe, alongside the best faculty this side of the Golden Gate Bridge. To celebrate All Worlds Day today, we have Professor Emcee, who is also looking to escape the Canadian winter and visit Ibiza.
Oh my God. From your lips to God's ears.
And Dean Hawk, has actually built his own little pied-à-terre in the Athena's Jeffries tube. So that's where, yeah.
It's a good place to keep warm.
Right?
Yeah.
Nice, quiet. Nobody knows where you really are. How are we doing?
We're doing good.
We're doing okay. I have my voice back, so
Yeah.
Good. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. MC survived the review of 106 and he's back. It is cold where I am. It is 40 degrees, if you can believe it. It's been raining for 4 days. I want my rent to be reimbursed because why pay a sunshine tax for this kind of weather, California?
We noticed the unusually warm-looking sweater.
I don't
tonight.
have heat. I usually don't need it, so I don't have it. And now I'm really cold. I'm wearing 2 pairs of socks. This week we are reviewing episode 107 of Starfleet Academy, Cousin, written by Alex Taub, who also wrote 103, and Eric Anthony Glover, who wrote 104, and directed by Andy Armaganian, who directed 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds. Our cadets return home for their first school holidays, and they must choose between what their family expects of them and their own dreams for the future, including Genesis, who is an aspiring captain who's secretly willing to risk everything and rewrite her own past, and our aristocratic cadet, Darren Remy, called back home to serve his planet way before he's ready. Who's ever ready? Who is? MC, because to celebrate the fact that you have a voice back. Can you please read the patrons tonight?
Thanks to Simon Steger, Jeff Reeve, Tallulah, Jen Stein, Tina Alexander, Joe Saporito, Keng Wee, Taku Nagumo, Fernanda Nogales, SMK, Colin Davidson, Shatterhand 2049, Jesco, Michael Graham, Emily and Travis, Maggie Light, Wayne Ritz, Skona Vark, Sean, Jay Howard, Mehalani Uchiyama, Matt Herker, Joshua Lewis, Tara Poland, Slope 74, Rude Parakeet, Adam Sanders, Amy the Magic Snail, Aaron W., Carl Angoli, Michael Kwan, Caitlin Elizabeth Dean, Jim McMahon, Sedano 317, Puka Hair, 3 Fries Short, Kate Tip, Tripping the Reader Alert Over a Pineapple, Sean Manning, Asher at the Bat, Chris Waterman, RHCB, Martin Simpson, Norman Buchwald, David Prime Hildebrand, Taryn J. Robinson, Rob Grinner, Eric the Red, Trouble, Jamie Roberts, Honeyberry, Paul Taylor Pitt, Brett Jones, Michelle P., Margin Walker 82, Melissa Bartell, Jesse Robbins, Kim, Chris Finoglio, Felix Dax, Kelly McKinnon, Chief Petty Officer Snuggles, Lisa Moore, Kirsten Byer, Big Easy Blasphemy, Kristen Smith, and our newest patron collective member, Brad Dimage.
Thank you. And of course, a big thank you to our Badmirals, our EPs who are sending us all to Ibiza. Oh, thank you so much. The whole faculty. Finally, Huck, you're going to be able to get out of the Jeffries tube. So happy.
That's so good.
Simon Stagger, Chris Waterman, Tara Poland, Dana, Matt Harker, Jing McMahon, Maggie Light, Fef, Michael Graham, and Jesse. We have some news, a bit of news. So first of all, remember to join us on the Discord for the watch along of 107 just after the pod. I am going to be in WonderCon end of March, so in a month, and I will be on a panel about cosplay.
Ooh.
More to come. I'm really excited about this. The new episode of Genre Friction, where I'm going to review 106 and 107 with Jesse Gender, will be out tomorrow. And there's more on the other side of the page. Sorry.
Yeah.
Another Cries of Mars crew rotation video went up today. Season 1 of our new campaign records this Sunday. Patron happy hour this Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. You need to grab your michelada and be a good bummer, everybody. Go to the happy hour. Come say hi. It is too early for me. It's going to be, 9 a.m. for me? No happy hour at 9 a.m., friends. And stickers are here. Pins are ordered for our patron collective. Just know that if you've looked around to the things happening around us, shipping costs due to many different political decisions are way out of hand. They're becoming really expensive for us to cover. Know that you can support the pod by doing super chats. So if you do a super chat, we will feature your comment and read it, but also it will help us send pens and things and everything, because life is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can't wait for money to not exist anymore.
And I also have some news. On Saturday is Trek Master Quiz at 6:30 Eastern, and we are doing the production Master Quiz with Sean Ferrick from Trek Culture and Dr. Trek himself, Larry Nemechek. And we pre-recorded that because there's a lot of different time zones going on, but it will be a premiere going up on Saturday at 6:30. So check that out. It was a lot of fun. It was very spicy.
Yeah, I've seen the promo and I was like, wow. I am looking forward to this. It's gonna stress me out, but in a good way. Okay, any other news? No news. Okay, let's go review episode 107, Cosine. It's spring break, y'all. It doesn't feel like it for us poor earthlings right now, but it is spring break time. Oh yeah, it is raining on San Francisco, and we're catching up with our cadets after the terrible events on the Miyazaki last week, and it is already All World's Day. First time in Star Trek, right?
Yeah, that's a brand new thing. We don't
I
get a
mean-
lot of holidays, so
As long as it's not Thanksgiving.
This one felt like Thanksgiving, though. I think they were focused on the meal they were going to have.
Yeah, I hope they still have salmon for First Contact Day. I wonder in 32nd century. Sam, by the way, incredible hairstyle.
Yes.
beautiful chef's kiss.
Incredible. He's still glitching and is being sent to a holo spa in Denver. We could go there too. Genesis gets her name on the pre-comment track for her decision making and her help during last week's episode. Jaden and Kyle are going with MC to Ibiza. Kyle is still trying to get over Bav is dead. Caleb is struggling to reconnect with Tarima while she's recovering on Beta and gets to stay alone in the academy by himself. instead of being shipped to Dakar with his host family. And Darren, we'll talk about him, but Darren gets kidnapped. What did you think of this catching up with our cadets after the tension of 106? What did you think of this cold open where we see all of them being dispatched left and right? We're gonna go Emcee and Hawk.
Well, I think that it was a little bit jarring if you go right from watching the last one to this one, because if I recall correctly, that it starts off with a big like notice that it is now the end of spring semester, like it's heated rivalry or something. And it's so sudden with everything that happened. It's like, oh, are we not going to really have any fallout? But we could see throughout this episode, and we'll talk more about it, that instead of just immediate fallout, we're going to be having emotional fallout just throughout the entire thing. And it was so painful when Caleb was recording that message and then immediately deleted it. And being an awkward person, I have done that so many fucking times where I've practiced where I'm going to say to somebody and then just never said what I was practicing, or written something out and then deleted it. Yeah, it's ugly. It's terrible. Jaden and Kyle, I am so here for them. This relationship, all the way to going to Ibiza, that is such they are a couple. It's really kind of snuck up when they've gone from this casual flirting to full out couple. I do think that it's interesting that Jaden kind of chalks up agreeing to go to Ibiza to Bobby's death, because I don't think that's what Kyle's thinking of. If you're trying to mourn your friend who was tragically killed, I don't think Ibiza is, unless it's really changed.
Ibiza 800 years ago was very different than now. Let's be honest.
But I mean, considering Jaden is getting a Hawaiian shirt ready to go, I'm not really too sure. And yeah, no, it's just interesting how they've set everything up. I am sorry that Sam is not in this episode more, because I do think we feel her absence. She is such a big presence in the show. And also, I would just like to look at that hair just all the time because she looked amazing.
For real. Hawk?
This one didn't feel like it snuck up on us in that. I think, given that it was a month and some time after the events, we were looking at a little tamer episode than that. The one I keep comparing this to would be Family. We went from with the best of both worlds part 2 to Family, and that, which was definitely a lighter tone, except for certain parts in that.
I was Family's a lighter tone.
I totally understand what Hawk is saying. I don't think it's apples to apples comparing the episodes, because I don't think the episode with the Miyazaki is comparable to the best of both worlds, and this one is certainly not as emotionally draining as Family. But you go from this heavy conflict episode to one that is character focused and more about developing things and fallout from what happened. So
yeah, definitely. It's obviously everybody reacts to tragedy differently in that. I know plans for Ibiza and that, but then again, young people, it's they can bounce back in that, and Ibiza is a good place for a little recovery. I that's just my opinion. Jaden and Kyle, yes, I mean that one didn't even sneak up on me in that, because we saw the development over the last at least 3 or 4 episodes in that. Yeah, they're together. There is no secret anymore. They are a couple. What really struck me with Jaden, it's my first, always I think with, a Klingon in Starfleet, we always go to Worf and that, and it's we always think of Worf and his, kind of the way he approached, kind of, human traditions, events and that, with that kind of grumpiness and that. But Jaden is so different. Like he's bemused by it and that, but like he's cool. He's just cool with it. He's just going with it and that. It's like beachwear and that. It's like it's a little confusing to him, but at the same time, he seems to roll with things so much better.
You could almost compare it to Worf in Let He Who Is Without Sin and just see how much chiller Jaden is.
Exactly.
Well, he's younger.
That is true.
It's also like I feel maybe we're way chiller than people 900 years ago. So I think it's just like they're all way chiller than anybody we've seen in TNG. I don't think the TNG crew has a lot of chill.
No, they do not.
Also, Worf just has a metal rod shoved so far up his ass. I mean, there is a reason why Guinan recommended that he start drinking prune juice.
Yes.
Yeah, get drunk. That will chill you out.
Yes, and get that rod out. Go ahead, please. No, I'm good.
No, I'm having stream issues. Sorry, everybody. If I'm glitching, I'm seeing everybody glitch. So go ahead, Hawk.
Darum getting kidnapped. That was definitely an unexpected turn. I love that. Basically what they call that stabilized one-way wormhole they do for a transport. I definitely thought that was going to take a much different direction. When we got to it, but.
I was kind of underwhelmed by the start of the episode, because if there's one thing that by episode 7 the Academy has made me accustomed to, is that they don't pull their punches, and they usually go into like the hard conversation and go into like what the cadets are feeling and how they're adapting to things and so on and so on. And so being just so far away from the Miyazaki was interesting, but then it felt like a little bit brushed under the rug. I think everybody's fine, everybody's good, go home, go party on Ibiza. So I was like, okay, it was giving a little bit 90s track where like people get over things and they're gonna go over things. So I was like, okay. I was so here for Sam's hair so much. I was incredibly sad that she was gone, and also she's still glitching, and it is going into the category that I love and support in Star Trek, called "Everybody should freak out way more." They're just like, "Oh, you're gonna go to the spa and you're gonna be fine," and I'm like, I'm worried for my girl. I want to know what's going on. I was really interested in Caleb and that message to Terima. I feel Sandra Rosta is really getting into like that character and slowly like unfolding, all the trauma, all the difficulty. And I think we talked in 106 of how he was shocked because he doesn't want to reveal anything about himself. And then she got to see his true trauma and what was like, really at the core of himself, and him not being able to talk this through was really sad. I was really sad.
I do have to say that you said that Starfleet Academy usually gets to the heart of things, and so it was kind of jarring that they didn't do that with the Miyazaki. I actually think it makes total sense for young people, because these are emotionally immature people who are, the frontal cortex is still forming. So it's really easy to get really deep about things that for the most part don't matter as much. Like, I mean, yes, they do deal with a lot of things that do matter, but this is the first time that I think a lot of them have dealt with death, especially the death of somebody who is their own age. You can think of it almost like another episode to compare it to would be It's Only a Paper Moon, when you have Nog, who is kind of falling back into the holodeck because he doesn't want to deal with the reality of things. So nobody here really wants to deal with what happened on the Miyazaki. So staying away from, talking to Terima and just nobody acknowledging it really at all and just focusing on other bullshit, it makes sense to me.
well, that's where it was drawing to me, because so far the academy has been very good at representing like the school, how a school would function, how educator would function, how they would take care of the kid. And if there's like any of the kids that dies, especially violently, there would be there's a lot of things that are put into place, like support and like talk and like grieving counselor and all this. And I said they don't want to do an episode about this because maybe it's uninteresting to people and they just want to think that kids just bounce back. They don't. They don't. They carry trauma all their life. And so I was just like, oh, they're just not going into like something that we've not seen in Star Trek yet, which is like them actually taking care of kids that went through something terrible. And they just went very Star Trek. Yeah, very.
It's super on brand for Starfleet.
Everybody's gonna be fine. And I'm just like, oh, okay then. So I think that was what was a bit disappointing to me, that they didn't try to address any of the thing and have an interesting conversation about it. Okay, so from now there's two plots, right? There's Durham and there's Genesis. Those two plots don't intersect at all and have nothing to do one with another. So
what we're waiting.
Yeah. What we're gonna do is that we're gonna talk about plot A, which is Durham and Jaden, and then we'll talk about Genesis after that. So Durham gets kidnapped. Oh no. Security protocol on the academy could be better. And Jaden will witness the kidnapping, jumps through the one-way wormhole portal door. He ends up on a new planet, a strange new world. I forgot the name of the planet. Please don't yell at me.
It's a moon.
They called it the Sunset Moon.
Yeah,
I believe
the Sunset Moon, right? Yeah. Where Durham is being prepped for his wedding. Jaden brings back the foam rocks to Star Trek. Thank you. I was here for that throwback. The Academy. Yeah. Thank you so much. And he's declared the best man, a cousin. What did you think of? Well, first of all, this is going to be a Durham episode, right? We had a Sam episode, we have Jaden episode, we had Caleb episode. So Durham episode. What did you think of this plot for Durham? A royal wedding. Emcee?
This is like the light version of a mock time. And I appreciate it. Like, it even kind of looks like a higher end version of that, sets that they had for actually having the Caliphate. So I appreciate that because it's one of my favorite episodes. And the outfits, I love the outfits in this, everything. And I think it's so, Jaden is such a good friend. Like, just no freaking question, just jumping through a wormhole and going to who knows where and immediately picking up a rock and just going, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna attack you. It's so sweet. And I am interested in this relationship that these two have. And I, putting a lot of mustard on relationship because there is some weird vibes going on throughout this entire episode with people.
Yeah, same. This one, the wedding threw me for a loop. I mean, it's weird because you hear like he's getting married and that, and actually one of the things, first episodes I thought of was that one where Pleasant Fountains Lie, the Lower Decks episode with Billups and that. that one's, I don't know why I got strong vibes about that one, but this one, I kind of knew like it was obviously not going to end in his marriage, and that because it would have interrupted the Starfleet classes. Obviously he's kind of he's a full cast member in that, so it's like they're not going to write him off in that to just be married and running Coyote and Empire now. So I was kind of waiting to see like where that would develop. Jaden and that immediately going for a rock was amazing. And throwing out today is a good day to die on top of it. And that,
Yeah.
and by the way, in that, like, he's got some strength in that, because like, if I remember the editing right in that, he was kind of lifting up the rock at first with two hands and that, and then like charging in with it in one. And then as he dropped it, there was a very audible, like, clanking of the rock. So like, good on him. Like, but yeah.
Yeah, I was interested to see that royal side of Durham, because they've been toying about it. They've been like plugging it here and there, that he has a posse of followers, that he has somebody to wipe his butt, and like in the first episode we hear here and there about it, but it's never really explained, and he doesn't talk about it except for the fact that he doesn't want to disappoint his parent, that he has like such pressure on him. So I was interested at the fact that it was a arranged marriage, because I mean, like, he's getting kidnapped, so like most of it's an arranged marriage, like, and to see a little bit more in a honor culture in Star Trek that is not Klingons or even Vulcans here and there, so I was interested in seeing like something from a new culture and something totally like alien and different. We definitely get a mock time vibe with the desert planet, and I was but they also told me so many times that he comes from an ocean planet. And I'm like, oh, that's so much like, bend over backward to explain to me that the planet stopped turning and then the ocean, like, and I'm like, you just didn't want to pay for the makeup, my friends. Like, just like,
hey, ocean effects are also really expensive.
Yeah, they were like, listen, we're getting you a Durham episode, but we're not gonna give you the cool looking one, okay? Like, AR rolls, Vulcan, here you go. And so that was definitely, I was like, I wanted really to see more of the Kyonian and more the Kyonian culture, and maybe the architecture, and maybe the planet and how it's organized. So for me, like the fact that plot is about a marriage, a wedding, was super interesting at the beginning. So it's their sealing ceremony, which is not exactly the wedding. It's like,
I think it's a wedding. It's just that they call it something different because, they're aliens.
I got it, like it was an engagement, because like it's a royal wedding with 5 people. So I was like, this is a rehearsal dinner. And we met Kyra, who is going to be his wife and is not into the royalty nonsense. We learned that she's the one who asked for the marriage to happen now, because her parents are going to abdicate early, and she doesn't want or can't rule by herself. She needs Durham with her. We see a very fragile, soft side to Durham that we kind of like saw here and there before, but not as much as we see him here. What did you think of this change of pace and seeing him kind of subdued and very, I don't know, very not the Durham we've seen in the Academy?
Well, considering the different arranged marriages that we've seen in Star Trek, I really appreciate how much Durham and Kyra like each other. Like, it does seem like they don't have like the deep romantic love, but I truly believe that Durham does love her. He does say that they're best friends, and I think he did want to marry her. But I think that there is just like, and we will talk about this more after, but a compatibility problem, because he's not able to be himself around her, specifically because of their stations, and he is a good little sub. And
I didn't say, okay, I wrote that at the beginning, and then I'm not gonna say that, but like,
but you knew that MC would be good and do that for you. Because it's true. This is something that we know about him from everything we've seen about him trying to do everything to just make his parents like him, like a tiny bit. And everything we see in this episode, where you don't have that brash bravado from him. Everything becomes very subdued. It's because when he is with people who are in more authority to him, he immediately falls back. And it's interesting. It is, I don't think that we could have that character being like brash in every single situation and have it stay interesting. And so it is kind of cool that this early to see it, that amount of bravado was almost a put on, because he was finally free of these, royal chains and was able to get out on his own. So he was kind of trying to find a way to regulate it. And I think by the time we get to this episode, he has kind of found a way to get to that, where he can be friends with Jaden, but also still an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, you really have some good points. Yeah, particularly the relationship with Kyra and that. Yes, it's an arranged marriage, but like at the same time, uh, they don't feel so alien to each other in that. Like when we saw Spock and T'Pring, like in Amok time and that, they just, they didn't seem to. They're Vulcans, obviously, and playing it as Vulcans at that time, but like they just seem like worlds apart.
T'Pring was cold even for a Vulcan.
Yes, that's true.
And T'Pring is done with his bullshit. Now that we know everything is
Yes.
gone, I'm like, yeah, I'll try to murder you too.
I mean, yeah,
let's go.
yeah, exactly. Ston, get him. But no, they did seem to have genuine affection for each other, and yes, as they said, they were best friends. In this really, he's obviously very honor bound in that, but also he's as we know, he's still afraid of the father in that, and desperately trying to get his like love and appraisal, and and that obviously plays a big part in his decision to go along with this, even though it destroyed the plan that they had. He was going to devote some years to the academy and then some years serving in Starfleet and that before this was supposed to happen, but plans change as they always do. So, but the fact that he was kind of, willing to go into it, with arms wide open and that, it said a lot about the character. Yes, he has been so kind of, like, obsessed with like winning at the academy and like topping over everybody in that. But yes, he entered into that a very servile role in this. I mean, he was going to be basically like a consort, the queen's consort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of like is what that threw me out, because I was like, first of all, who is this woman? She comes out of nowhere, and then we're like, oh, and I was missing so much information about the Kyonian and who the fuck she was. Like, they tried to tell us, I mean, their parent abdicate, so she's gonna have to rule. But why the fuck does she need Darim? Like, she needs a consort, like she needs a man, like she cannot rule by herself. Then in the end, they tell us that she actually can, but it has never been done. And I thought that would have been something interesting to explore way more than Darim is a little sub and he doesn't know what to do if he's not being a sub. And also, I feel like when he got there, the way that George Hawkins just like flipped his personality and became like entered that like mold that has been made for him, that not made for him, but that like it was just been pushed all his life. I thought it was like, for me, maybe the sole interesting thing I found in that plot is how his whole life had been basically him being clipped like a bonsai to fit that perfect little frame that he's supposed to, just be and do. And the moment they give him like some freedom, he's like, wait, actually, I'm going to choose to be a dick. And, and I think it's also because he thinks that Kyonian are superior, So it comes from also a superiority complex towards the other species, which is super interesting. And they're like, no, actually, let's not talk about that. I was like, okay. So I really was interested into exploring Darim, especially his relationship to his parents, and here his relationship to royalty. But it is half an episode, because the other half is Genesis, right? And I would have really wished that the whole episode was Darim, and that we really get into like like the whole thing that is going on, like how it's very seemingly very important to him, but it was not important to me because I had no fucking clue what was going on, let's be honest, and who was that woman and why are these 5 people in the background not his parents, and who is Quill says nothing, but she has a name, and I was like, is that Kyra's girlfriend or the cousin
That's what I was
more
thinking.
Yeah.
more than like just best man and maid of honor? I was like, I have so many questions about the Kyonians, and you're giving me nothing.
I do have to say, I think that I liked this episode more than both of you two did. But I do think that I feel a little cheated that we have had episodes that feel like they focus on specific characters going all the way back. And Genesis and Darum have to share an episode.
Yeah.
It's kind of sucks for them.
And also, I feel like they've been helping us like get really into who the fuck is Darum and what is going on. And like, you know, when he was talking about his parents, like making like him practice music until his finger bled and stuff like this, I'm like, I want to know about this. You made me interested in a character, and then you just like introduce a new woman instead of giving me his parents. And I have to suddenly get into the whole dynamic of another culture in literally 20 minutes. And I really wanted so much more, like get more time, you know, see the thing like cook a little bit, let them cook.
Also,
Yeah, go ahead.
given how like it's such a how the father is such an omnipresence in his life and that we never meet him yet. Like,
That's true.
Yeah, I think they're keeping that in season 2. They're like, you think we're giving you like too much about Darum, you get nothing. You get his side piece that he's never gonna see ever again.
This is how much his parents don't care about him. They don't show up when he's going to marry the queen of the fucking planet.
And I'm like, maybe there's a reason, like drop a line here or there, but he talks about his parents, how he needs to make them proud. And I'm like, they're not even here, man. Like, what is like, is the royalty broke in Kyonian? And like they have like like a thing on the moon with nobody. Anyway, he needs Jaden to stay for the sake of protocol, right? He needs to be his cousin, his best man, because apparently nobody else on the planet can do. He knows no one. To the Clint, that scene, the costume were absolutely incredible. And Darum really needs everything to go according to plan to make his parents proud and not disappoint Kyra. Kyra.
I heard Kyra.
He was rest for this. Darum at that moment cracks the very important jacket, and it starts a whole emotional process with Jaden. Jaden helps Darum try to calm down, see a greater destiny for himself than what his family expect for him. What did you think of this whole interaction with them, and also the fact that it finishes poorly and Jaden just leaves? Like,
so this is why I'm talking about putting a lot of mustard onto their relationship. Jaden and Darum have a very strange dynamic where there is like this underlying sexual romantic tension between them that's been going on since I guess it was episode 4?
3, I think.
Yeah.
The debates,
which I think that
4.
was episode 4.
Yeah.
And we kind of revisit that in this scene. I don't think that Jaden really needed to stay for protocol. I think Darum just really, really wanted him to stay because he needed somebody to support him, because obviously he doesn't have anybody to support him. Every single person at that wedding was there for Kyra, which Darum, I think, has always been fine with up until now, but he's terrified. And he has finally kind of had this experience of support from people at the academy. So he wants that again. And yeah, the cracking of this very important jacket really does represent how Durham does not fit into this mold anymore of being the prince consort of Kionia. And I think it's lovely. The costumes were gorgeous. I love the costumes in this. And it's just so nice to see them having an argument and have it not it's not like an out and out fight. It is a subtler kind of disagreement, and I appreciate that not everything has to be like a complete knockdown drag out. So it is a little more subdued, and I appreciate that. And there's just so many layers on this, and a lot of that does come from the fact that they are building this romantic tension between them, which, you know, when you throw in the whole Kyle of all of it, and also Genesis, because there did seem to be tension between Durham and Genesis. And I mean, like, believe me, I have no problem with polydynamics, but there it is interesting that they are doing a lot of different relationship seeding.
I like the episode you watched better than the one I watched. Hawk, go ahead.
Yeah, MC raised a million good points on that one. Yes, he does reach out to Jaden and that, because he is drowning in this in this environment, because everybody wants this marriage to happen, and that, you know, and Jaden is the only one who's kind of like just on a more level head. That, you know, it's like, okay, I like that he's not saying you cannot leave the academy and that you know, blah 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 blah. He's being very supportive in that, and I love how it kind of mirrored the debate episode in that, when Durham starts freaking out after he cracks the jacket in half and that, and it's like it's almost like he was doing that same mirroring exercise with him, you know, when he couldn't breathe. Drowning in this environment, seriously. Okay.
It's a desert planet, okay?
That's right. That's true. Yeah, again, it's the same sexual dynamic I noticed in that mirroring episode in the debates. It continues on here and that, to the point where Jaden has to turn around and, like, basically, pay attention to the fact that he's shivering to death in this place. The fight, yes, it wasn't like, a big knockdown scrap and that, but, it shows that, like, Durham is, as a kid, he's a kid, right? And he's in a very emotional state, but he does kind of revert to lashing out, when his argument isn't going his way, and that, accusing him of Jaden of, like, running out on his family and that, doesn't he know the details of all that? I mean, like, it was petty and childish, and the fact that Jaden left, yes, I would have too, in that, because it was just a stupid low blow. But then again, like, they're kids, it's like, Caleb did the exact same thing to Tarima in the last episode, when it was like when his true feelings were, and inner life was kind of exposed to Tarima, he lashed out at her cruelly too. So again, you got to write it off to them being kids.
Yeah, I think I'm just, like, thrown by how fast this plot goes. I feel like if they had 15 minutes more on that part, it would have been so much more crafted and more, into the in-betweens and the fact that he's alone on Kionia. I didn't get that. Like, I was just like, why is there nobody else? Like, and he's just being so panicky. The whole thing about the jacket, I was like, oh, this is the most important jacket, doesn't fit him, which would throw me through a loop. That would throw me for a loop, and but then he immediately gives it to Jaden, and then it's fixed. So I'm like, I feel like there are, like, whole scenes of this episode that are just missing, and I need to compute into everything that is happening, knowing that we're reviewing plot A and then plot B, but we go one scene plot A, one scene plot B, one scene plot A, one scene plot B in this episode, which I feel didn't help, like, for me, built the emotional tension of what was going on with Durham and how distraught he was, because it was that and then Warp Slug, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, I was into this conversation. I wanted to really like see them like get at it. And I feel that it is so rush for an episode that could have been, I think, a whole Durham episode, and that would have been great. I'm surprised that they didn't go into actually talking about what happened in 104, because I feel that Jaden recognized himself in Durham at that moment and wants to help him, but he doesn't go there. He actually kind of like try to tell him, well, don't respect your culture, or like try to see something else, which he lashed out at when they told him that in 104. And I thought that there was like so much opportunities with this conversation to be a way longer conversation and actually go into the why Jaden wanted to stay true to his culture, but he's telling Darren to not stay true to his culture. Why he wanted to honor his family, but then took the choice to do something else, and how it come to that, and what it means to him, and like kind of have this conversation with Darren, who's going through the same shit ish, right? Like he's been born and raised into a culture that he wants to support, but also is making him have no decision whatsoever in how he want to live his life. And I thought there was so much that they could have like discussed, and it just ends in both of them not understanding each other and Jaden leaving. And I'm like, you could have pulled, especially because it's the same writer that was 104 and this episode, and I'm like, there is no way that there was not more pages to that thing. I will die on that hill. That there was way more conversation and that they were edited out.
It was a slightly shorter episode, so you might be right.
And also 2 plots.
Mm-hmm.
When like the others, like Sam or 104, he's totally like around Jaden or around Sam, right? So I was like, my man was cheated. Darren comes back to the sealing ceremony to support Darren. He gives his toast, and let's all accept that Klingon weddings are way superior to Kyonian weddings. Retelling how supportive Darren was of him during his difficult time, how he put others first, and Kyra is swayed by the beautiful speech, comes back to her on her decision of having Darren marry her. She hasn't realized that the man had a real personality somewhere in there. She makes him abdicate and sends him back to the academy. And she decides to be the first woman to rule alone. What did you think first of Jaden's speech, and also the aftermath of Darren getting sent back to the academy, having to abdicate the throne that he never did? He get the throne? How is he abdicate? I don't know. Like being sent away. MC.
Well, Jaden's speech was really very sweet. And this is somebody who is not comfortable with public speaking. And I think he was really speaking from the heart. It was very plain and not very fancy. He was just kind of stating all of the things he thinks about Darren. And by stating all of this stuff, Kyra realizes that she really doesn't know Darren, which is so jarring because he said that they were best friends. They've known each other since they were kids. It's just he's never been able to actually show off who he really is because of, like you said, he's been a bonsai and he finally was able to allow himself to grow, kind of like the opening credits. So,
Hey.
Yeah.
It's like poetry.
Me and my plant analogies.
So it must have been incredibly jarring to her, and she loves him. She doesn't want him to have to get rid of this part of himself because I think she can see how happy he is and that it would be so much better for him to be that person than it would be to just stand by her side and just be like, yes, dear, do this. Because you see him through this episode, he is just completely drained of anything. And, even when he's like leaning over and like kissing her on the cheek and being like, I love you, there's just absolute flatline there. I do wonder how long Kyra's going to be running the planet for herself, or if Quill is going to become her consort.
Yes! That Quill was the only person that I was interested in that whole thing.
I was picking up on some vibes, which apparently
you.
Quill was non-binary, which always love to have non-binary characters in Star Trek. But I was just getting a vibe from Quill that they were way into Kyra.
Yeah. First up, yes, Jaden, great speech. To go from from the episode 4 to now, and he's even threw in a great joke. Perhaps we will skip that part. But the listing is, listing like the the Durham that he knew, and that it's like part of me is like, oh shit, I forgot he walked on the hull of the Athena. Like just no suit, nothing. And then listing the accomplishment after accomplishment, and like the person that he knows, and that I did like that it was his speech that convince Kyra to end the marriage instead of Durham, because as we said, Durham is he was in a servile role, even with the guests and that, he's being the perfect host after the ceremony and everything. The fact that she ended it by saying that you lied to me, that I don't know if that she meant that to be cruel, or if that she was meaning like, you're going to be living a lie pretty much if you do this. Yeah, if you stay here, and that you're not going to be the person that your friend knows you as, and that you're just going to be number 2 to me. Basically.
Sorry. I am 5.
But as I said, I knew the marriage would not happen. As he's not leaving, and that he's a main character on the show, and that. So,
I was wondering if she was going to say that they could stay married, but she wanted him to go back to Starfleet. That was a possibility.
Yeah, but it'd be like it wouldn't, it's like if you're the writer in that, having to, say like, keep him in Starfleet while, coping with this whole marriage situation, and that, to say, okay, you can go do what you want in that, but no, it wouldn't have worked out that way. It needed to end, and if it wasn't going to be him doing it, it had to be her.
Yeah, I think I am trouble with Durham's arc, because the only choice he seemed to have ever made in his life, and I'm not even sure it was his choice, was to go to the academy, right? Like, I think it was given to him as an option, and he was okay, I'll do that, right? And then he's there to be the first Kyonian, right? I'm Kyonian, bitch, right? Then he gets kidnapped to that wedding where they had agreed that he had 5 or 6 years, and she comes back on that decision, doesn't even ask him what the fuck he thinks, just gets him kidnapped, put in the dress, and like to the altar, right? Then he goes through this whole emotional like hardship where he's trying to reconcile what he's been brainwashed into doing, let's be honest, right? And having Jaden there, who is basically, as you were saying, like kind of a buoy for him, like he's like holding to Jaden because he does want to go back to the academy, but he needs somebody to help him unhinge himself from this whole situation, right? But then in the end, the decision is not even his. She takes the decision for him, which is a good decision. We agree. Like, it's mostly what he wanted, but the lack of agency of Durham was so jarring in that episode. And I thought it was very interesting. But again, I would have liked that discussed, because basically he is in this situation of like, we see a lot of women in many culture that he doesn't have body autonomy, he doesn't have any agency in his future. He cannot decide who he's marrying. He cannot decide what he's studying. He cannot decide anything. He's been born and bred for one purpose, and he's never even think that he could do something else until he was put in contact with other people and other cultures, right? And even during the wedding, the decision of leaving is not even his, which I found super interesting, but just kind of like put under the carpet, you know? She's just like, you're going to abdicate now. You're living a lie. And he's like, what? What? Like, which I think she's right. But the thing is that he also, at one point, if you just tell me, he's again being told what to do, you know, even if it's most likely what he wants, there's no moment where Darren is like, you know what? I'll get married. And I think it's important for the character because they're most always setting up something bigger with his parents in season 2 or something like this. But I felt that this whole plot of him basically just being like pushed around and decided for it. I think, again, I needed 15 more minutes of them actually exploring the fact that he has no fucking agency given to him whatsoever. And I thought it was interesting to see a man in this position, first of all, because very often, like, we've seen a forced marriage in Strange New World, and the only one who's brainwashed is the woman. So I was interested in this dynamic and also like Kionian gender roles or things like this, but it would just not explore it, and you just left to me being like, oh, okay, there had something interesting, and just like I was disturbed by the fact that she's the one being like, you need to abdict. You need to, yeah, you're abdicating right now, and you're going, and he's like, what? And I'm just like, poor man. God, poor Darren. Like at one point, let him choose at least like what the fuck he's gonna eat. I don't know.
Yeah, I was not disturbed by that. I do think that, yes, I think both plots actually suffered from not being full episodes because Darren's plot to like give him a bit more agency or a bit more not making him feel completely complacent. You did need to have a scene where he's like talking to his parents and maybe he gets a little salty about what's going on. Just show for a moment that, because I mean, you had like the scene where he's like, you know, got, you know, like the sad puppy eyes because he's agreed to do this. And it's supposed to say that, you know, I don't want to do this. We needed to have a moment where he actually said that out loud to somebody. I think that I liked this. I mean, I think Kyra was actually a very sweet person, and I think that they do love each other very much, but it's just like the situation is not one that either of them want to be. Well, she wants to be in the situation. It's just she realizes that. Well, I mean, this is why we need more time, because the thing is, she doesn't want to be in this. She doesn't want to be in this situation. The only reason why she needs to marry him now is because her mom got sick, and so her parents decided to abdicate. And from what I was able to gather, like that the leader of Chironia needs to be married. So that's kind of what was going on. And I would have liked to have gotten a little deeper. I think what they did very well with what they had. But yeah, I do think that they could have done more.
And also I think because they were toying with this idea of like autonomy, body autonomy, agency that are decided by gender through a cultural, you know, decision, like through a culture. I thought it was an interesting plot. Like I'd be here to have Darren be like a bride that has no choice, and then through studying abroad deciding for himself. And I feel they just didn't do that. And I honestly, talking with you, I'm like, oh yeah, I see now what they wanted to do. Like watching the episode 3 down, I was like, this is fucking boring. I'm like, I was so bored. I was like, it's the same spot. They don't move. It's the same fucking place. There's 5 people in the background. It's an air wall. It's a lot of dialogues, and I have to understand that woman and that culture that I have never seen before in 20 minutes, split in between another plot. And I thought it was just poorly decided to bring all those elements that are interesting elements when you go and like dig into them, right? And just not have a full Daram episode. Not that I don't like Genesis. I like Genesis, but also
I would have liked to have a full Genesis
Yes,
episode, too.
I actually went into this episode thinking it was going to be, oh, they're going to focus on Genesis, just based on the promo art.
Speaking of Genesis, let's go to plot B. That mural is finally officially in the Star Trek lingo. Let's go. Thank you, Caleb. Hey. Caleb has managed to get himself locked in the academy by himself after harassing Nalake about not wanting to go to Dakar. Dakar is a beautiful city. Should have gone. Anyway.
Well, he wants to do a Tom Cruise and risky business.
Yeah, he's just sunbathing under the Delta opening. I have so many questions about how this school functions, but that is gonna be for another podcast. Anyway, he's swimming in the aquarium and just chilling. When Genesis beams herself back into the academy after hacking the transport log, allegedly to be able to do her homework in peace. She finds an unbothered Caleb, and the two are up to some shenanigans. Toxic, not toxic, allergic reaction, warp slug, and avoiding a very bothered Jet Reno. What did you think of this setting to explore Genesis and Caleb relationship?
Well, first I have to read this comment from Gene, just sunning himself like a buff baby. Gene,
it's the oil. It's the oil. Yeah.
So this was interesting. I hate that when things remind me of the boy wizard, but it was like giving me some Harry Potter during the holiday vibes where it's only like two people just running around like a school. Genesis, I could tell like right from the beginning that something was wrong, because the fact that she's hacking into the transport logs, it's like, oh, she's trying to get into trouble. And considering what happened to her being set up for the pre-command track, I was like, does she not want to be on the command track? Has she like immediately like figured that she's going to fail, so she better not try, because that is something that gifted kids do all the fucking time, is they assume they're going to fail, so they might as well not do it. And then getting into these shenanigans, like so many of them are stupid and ridiculous, but I don't mind them. They reminded me of that Strange New Worlds episode with Number One and Lon, like
the score,
the ship bingo.
Yeah.
And Jet Reno, her talking with
Laura
over the comm was so fucking funny. I live for their relationship. The fact that Laura is like worried that she's gonna die.
Do not die. Do not die. I am mad, but this is good.
Just some peak lesbians there. Just adore it.
This plot. Yes, Genesis was like sus all through the episode, and that getting the news about the command track, which is something that she wants. She said this, that she's always wanted a command track, but finally getting it, and that she seemed to be going out of her way to screw that up. Culminating on the bridge, and that it's like when she actually said fire up the warp core, I was like, what is happening? Is she hijacking the ship? And Caleb happened to be the voice of reason for it. And finally, when we get down to the nitty gritty of it, and that is, yes, she wants the command track and that, but we find out later why she's doing all this crazy nonsense. That are we talking about that now, or should I?
I mean, you just went at the end of the outline, so we can also skip all that and finish that episode. Hawk.
That said, the toxic, not toxic, was kind of a, it was a lot like Enterprise Bingo, and yes, Jet and Marino, the fact that Gina Char wasn't even in this episode and still managed to be hilarious, is just it's why she is our favorite character.
This really was an episode where they were trying to save their budget. Except for the outfits, because those were really nice. But very few sets. Like it's a quarry and the sets that they already have. Just like the very basic characters. Let's not put in the Jem'Hadar Klingon so that we don't have to do makeup.
No makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the thing is that no background actors, nobody, empty sets. Can I say one thing is that empty sets are not a good idea unless they're in a cave or something. Like those sets seem so, I don't know, out of place. I could only see that they were empty. This is the whole thing I was saying. I was like, it was giving Turnabout Intruder. Why is there nobody?
But I hate caves.
Yeah, but caves are done in Star Trek to save budget because you don't need anybody in the background. It is one drop behind you and it's easy and it's like a small place, right? And you can have your whole conversation there and they're stuck. Here you have this ginormous set with nobody. Same on Kionia. It's just 5 people in the background. And I was just like, why is there nobody in this episode everywhere?
No.
I understand it's the plot, but I still feel like it seemed like, hey, we're gonna do one more episode, but we spend all the money.
So I didn't mind there being no people at the school. That made sense to me, because they did explain that the campus was closed and it was just a very special circumstance that Caleb was able to stay because basically the chancellor cannot say no to him fucking ever.
Yeah.
But it's the two plots were both empty sets.
Yeah, the empty wedding, that I think bothered me more.
You're throwing a royal wedding and there's your neighbors. What the anyway?
If you guys need extras for Star Trek, that
we'll
you
do
can
it
get
for
cheap.
free.
Yeah, Hawk and I live very close.
Yes, we do actually. I could be in Toronto in a half hour.
I also felt that this was definitely the slapstick kind of plot, that was supposed to be the counterbalance of the serious plot at the beginning. So it was just it was jarring to go from one plot to another, and I was like, where is this thing going? And from the beginning I was like, there is, if there is no flip with Kyra and Genesis, why am I watching that, right? And I was happy there was at least a plot, kind of a plot twist at one point or another. I loved Laura, was the funniest even when she was not here. I thought that was really cool, but it seemed a little bit forced. They were I feel there was so many good ideas and all these little things that they wanted to put in an episode and they put it there. And I'm the whole thing with the big ear and the big toe and all that. I was just what? Where are we going? And they've been so much better at putting the humor into even very difficult situation. In 101, I laughed so many times with Laura Fogg and she was dying and I was laughing my ass off. And I feel that these were just kind of hinged in a way that, I mean, I laughed, but then I was like, why does she have this giant toe? What is
I have
going
to
on?
say, like the ear thing and the toe, like those things were like my least favorite part of the episode because they really reminded me of my least favorite part in Star Trek 09, and that's when Kirk is going through all like the side effects, which
Numb
is like
tongue.
the dumbest thing that they did
Yeah.
in that movie.
But I'm here, and usually, I mean, it's another kind of humor that they've done. I'm glad that yet again, Gina Yashere is great at delivering a joke. But it was just weird. Why was she like? Yeah, she could have been here, and it would have been even funnier. But anyway, anything to add about this before we move on?
I love warp slugs now.
Warp slugs. Yes, toxic, not toxic. That was funny, but just
So Gene apparently thinks that me mentioning the Kelvin verse is now a drinking game.
oh well. I mean, we do talk about the
Yeah.
Canadian road, but not enough to get you drunk, Jane. Like honestly, once every episode, not even.
I am allowed to do it once per episode. That is the
Yeah.
contract that I signed with Julian when I
Oh, okay,
decided
see?
to join the show.
Not being paid, but who signed contract? Genesis and Caleb connect and have a long conversation sitting by the airlocks. Very will they one day, but the conversation goes to Terima, and Caleb finally opens up about what happened with Tarima in the previous episode and how he spent his whole life getting away from stuff. And Genesis just wants to sit in the captain chair. What did we think of this dialogue between the two? Just slowly opening about their insecurities and also how they're slowly becoming attached to other people on the ship, on the school and the academy. MC.
So I thought this was interesting because in the first episode, I did think that Genesis and Caleb had kind of a flirtation going on. And this felt like kind of the first episode that picked up on that. Because like by the second episode, like Caleb was just like all about Terima. Do have to say I'm really kind of pissy that Caleb immediately went from this very super serious relationship with Terima to flirting with Genesis while Terima was recovering from a fucking coma. But I did like that he explained like his reticence for deepening the relationship with Terima comes not from her, Black Canary powers, but from the emotional connection that they made where she was able to see his childhood memories. Because like Terima was terrified that by doing like that psychic scream or whatever, that Caleb would not look at her the same way again. But we could see that in this, that he's not even thinking about that. Just it's not really about her. It's more about the fact that he's still feeling so raw from that vulnerability that he showed to her that he's trying to figure out how to deal with that relationship. Because the last time he was vulnerable with anybody, she disappeared for 10 years. So he is trying to find a way to do that without getting hurt. And in pulling away, he's going to flirt with Genesis, and it's okay that they just have like this mild flirtation because it wasn't anything more than that. They have a moment, and Caleb acknowledges that there was a moment at the end of the episode without picking up on it, and that's fine. They're young adults, so that shit happens.
Yeah, I kind of got that whole thing. I was like, is he really flirting? And it's like, no. It's like, I think they kind of work better as like colleagues than any sort of romantic connection. And that I hope they don't go in any of that direction. And yes, especially when Caleb has a girlfriend who is recovering from a coma where she almost blew out her neural synapses, saving his life. I did love the conversation with Genesis and that. I mean, and it's the route that connects plots A and B is like, these kids who are a little, pretty afraid of like, kind of being who they want to be. The difference being like Genesis seems a little more self-aware in this episode. It's like when she starts questioning, like, it's like, yes, I'm on the command track, and that, yes, I've sat in a captain's chair.
Pre-command.
Yeah,
Pre-command.
Pre-command, yes.
It's pre-elitism.
But she also kind of directly acknowledges the fact that it's like the fact that she is an admiral's daughter, and that, and she's sat in that captain's chair because she is an admiral's daughter, and actually begins to question, is like, whose footsteps am I really walking in? It's like, am I making my own path, or am I simply just following in my father's? So I love the insight into her character with that, even as brief as it was.
I didn't see it as flirting. I think it was more like hot people trauma bonding, and it just reads like that. I really like that they're friends and that they're also very at ease with each other. They're also like 21. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
what, for sure.
No, I think that they were flirting just because there was that line where Genesis asks if Caleb's been thinking about her like all of these weeks, and he says, since the moment on the bridge, except for one moment yesterday, and gives her kind of a meaningful look. So
yeah, but it's the kind of shit I say to Julian, and I'm not flirting to him. You know what I mean? Like, like I think that, first of all, because she is trying to get him to do something for her, I think this is how she defaults to like getting him hooked on like doing the thing, and exploiting his vulnerability. By the way, we'll talk about this. But yeah, I was just like, I hope to just stay friend. And I mean, I have a lot of friends who like I say shit like this, and doesn't mean I'm flirting with them. It's just being, I don't know, maybe I'm just weirdly aged. I don't know. Anyway, what really disturbed me more in this conversation is how boring it was shot. Like, the empty sets, the people not moving, the camera just looking at their face back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Nobody stands up, nobody moves around, we don't see anything. It was just like, and 5 minutes later, like, it was a lot of telling and not showing. And I think that's something that also made me just disconnected me from the episode, because the camera has been so dynamic in the other episode. It's been like so like like this beautiful set and all this thing happening. Like, we've talked so much about like having so many things happening at the same time, and always like being like peeking into like the everyday life. I was just like, oh my god, get the fuck out of this airlock and go do something. I don't know, walk around the atrium, sit, stand, turn, look at each other. I don't know. It was just like, why are you sitting on the floor so long? So long. So I would have rather this thing be 1 minute and given 4 more minutes to Darren, who's also just standing and talking, but at least I wanted to know about Kionia, so why not? I want to know what happened to this episode direction also, because the same director did Lift Us from Where
Suffering Cannot Reach.
Yeah.
And the other one was Through the Lens of Time.
Yeah. Which are like well shot episodes, like there's a lot of storytelling in the direction. And this one, I think it's just like those empty set and people not moving and just standing there, which is like, anyway. I was here for Caleb opening. I'm interested in Caleb. I like when like that the character is growing up and like slowly like also doing therapy. And being, hey, you know what? I'm very sensitive about this thing that I've been keeping hidden all my life, and now everybody is up in my business, and it's difficult for me, and that's why I can't talk with her. So I was like, oh.
Also, he expands on that a little bit more. It's not just that childhood trauma, it's like, eventually it would show that, but like I think he also mentioned like he's done bad shit through his life, and that obviously being a child on the run, and that he's had to survive, and he probably had to do some pretty insane stuff that he's very not proud of, which is something that he probably didn't anticipate, like when he started a relationship with the Beta Z, that stuff was going to come up.
And I really like that part of the episode. I think my favorite part of the episode is Caleb. And then she's just like, I want to sit in the captain chair. And I'm like, girl, shut the fuck up. Listen to the man a little bit. I know you have like a plan B and like something you want to do, but I'm just like, ah. And also it was so clunky how she explained it. I mean, I got it. I was like, oh, you want to sit in a chair that is not your dad's chair. But also, I'm pretty sure if you ask Nala, she's not gonna say no.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just like it was the motivations. Like I know Caleb like called it right away also that it was like kind of like wonky and kind of like out of there, but I was kind of, the hinges of this episode was showing too much to me. Like how they would go from one plot point to one other plot point was like mainly throwing me out of the episode. Speaking of Genesis, so she wants to go to the bridge and she starts like the warp core and all of this and doing crazy thing there. Just all that because she wants to grab the programmable key that is in the chair. Did we know this thing existed? Or am I just, is it the first time there's a key? I don't know. Anyway, I was like,
this
there's
was
a
the
key
first
in
time
the
it's been
chair?
mentioned. Yeah.
I was like, what? So she wants the programmable key in the chair to be able to access all data on the ship. And we learned that she wants to erase a recommendation letter that is in her application file before it gets to the pre-command track. What did you think of Genesis' motivation? That whole, like, I'm going to use Caleb. I don't think she knew he was going to be here, but I'm going to get my way to the ship, get the key, and erase my recommendation letters from my application. MC.
Yeah, she didn't know he was going to be there. So I think she was planning to do it all herself. But since he was there, she was going to use him because he's obviously really good at this kind of stuff. And she thought that she could trick him, or that if he found out, that maybe he wouldn't care because he is always, fuck the establishment. Now, as for her motivation for doing this, well, first of all, it's not one recommendation letter, it's all of the recommendation letters. She said that to a person, they all said that she was driven by fear, and she erased the by fear part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as somebody with rejection sensitive dysphoria, I can really fucking empathize with Genesis, where you're somebody who pushes yourself so hard to do absolutely fucking everything because you don't want anybody to be mad at you. And when somebody says something like that, something which is a small like problem, where it's like, yeah, she does this out of fear, so it's like she is somebody who wants to follow orders. That's something that could be fixed, and that is what Nala ends up saying to her later, that they were pointing out a flaw, something that you could have worked on if you hadn't just denied it. But when you're in that mindset that kind of burned out gifted child, those kinds of comments get into your head, and that is the only thing you fucking think about, and you just want it to disappear. But I guarantee you she's thought about it every single fucking day. She's lying in bed and she's just staring up at the ceiling, and she's like, every single one of them said, driven by fear. Am I driven by fear? No, I'm not driven by fear, but everybody said it. Yeah, so I think this is something that haunts her. And I think that, her changing it, I honestly think that if she had gone to Nala and explained what she had done, it would have been fine. But that just brings up a whole nother thing. She doesn't like to admit when she's wrong because she is driven by fear. So she would much rather do this whole elaborate thing, which is against the rules, than admit that she's wrong.
Yeah. So with Caleb, I mean, it's a little complicated than that. She kind of pulled him into this, and I keep thinking back, if she had just been honest about it from the beginning with Caleb, people probably would have helped her. It's like she covered for him, like back in episode 1, and that when he was illegally like tapping into the communications array to try to get a message out to his mom. The fact that is it the fact that she didn't is it more that she was concerned about that she altered the records and that she was trying to unalter them? Like
Yeah,
I
that's
got
what
a
I
little,
thought she was
yeah,
doing.
because we know, like, falsifying a record for an application to Starfleet, it's had some pretty serious consequences. Yeah. Honestly, if she had been honest with Caleb and that, he definitely would have helped her to get into that. But the fact that she wasn't honest with herself enough, and the fact that it's like she didn't trust even Aki in that with this until she was caught red-handed.
I do have to say it's also really funny that because the whole reason why she wanted to change it back is because Nala was going to have to check all of her recommendations with whoever gave it to them. Does Genesis really think that all of the commanders or whatever who wrote her recommendations remember everything that they said in their recommendation letter? No, they
if I write on a recommendation that somebody is driven by fear, I will fucking remember it, because I write a lot of recommendation for applications every year, a lot, for college, for high school, for positions. I wrote a lot of those, and one, you can get sued for a false recommendation. First, second, if you write shit like that, it's that you really want to convey something, and I would definitely remember that. Like, that is a wild thing to write in a recommendation.
Okay, fair. I have not written many recommendation letters in my time, but I just feel like if they started reading part of it, they'd be like, but I don't know. You are more of an expert on this kind of stuff than me.
Well, I think it's just weird that I think it's, again, that's another thing that threw me off, because, okay, you seal recommendations. Like, normally the person cannot read them. For sure, Genesis went in and read them. That I buy. Absolutely. Then she falsified them. But the thing is that usually you call recommendations also. You read the document and then you choose a few of them and you call them, right? And you talk about it, especially if there's somebody high profile or somebody that is has only glowing. You're like, okay, what is it that you're not telling me? Which apparently they don't do in the 32nd century. And then, they will reassess those recommendations for another track and not ask for new recommendations. There's a lot of I don't know, for me it was kind of pulled by hairs. I was like, I don't really buy that whole pre-come-in track that is gonna go back and read the application that was done for the Academy and not for that track that was done a year ago, or maybe more than a year ago, because I don't know how they get selected to the Academy. So, there was a lot of things. I'm like, yeah, I see how she was panicking, and it's a thing in her head, and that doesn't really make sense because, why the fuck
it probably wouldn't matter, because I actually think that her professors would probably have to write new recommendations for her.
Yeah, and she also saved the life of almost everyone literally a week ago, and I'm like, you're worried about a fucking recommendation letter that somebody wrote to enter Starfleet Academy a year or two ago? Girl, you need to talk to somebody. And Hawk, I totally bypassed you. Tell us. No?
Okay. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, it's a connective thread throughout the episode, and that between the A and B and all these characters, and that is a lot of them are afraid to be seen for who they truly are, and that. And in the case of Genesis, and that, I think for me, altering the records was, probably a lot worse than actually what was on them. That, is she the first one who's, first Academy, cadet who's, ever had a recommendation that said this one's driven by fear? It's they, in Starfleet, there's a whole test for fear in Starfleet, with the Kobayashi Maru, and that it's yes, people are driven by fear. They're driven by a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that eliminates her from the command track. It means that, it's, at some point she'll have to face that, and this is what she's in school for. It's like, these cadets are there not just to learn about, like, the galaxy around them. They're also there to learn about themselves,
Well, I think that this is the only argument for why the Darum and Genesis plots are in the same episode. Being driven by fear is, I think, what they're both doing. They're both being servile to the people in higher places than them because they don't want to disappoint anybody. So I think that is kind of what they mean by being driven by fear, that she's not somebody who's going to stand up to anybody in authority. She's going to be a good little soldier and do whatever she's told, which is not something that is really good for somebody in command.
Mm-hmm. I think it would have been interesting to put those plots in clearer parallel with what happened the previous episode, because we have kids that went through intense trauma. Genesis and Darum were on the Athena and helped support the people that were there. So they were like kind of like not in direct danger, but also absolutely freaking out, trying to find a solution to get them out, right? And then you have these two kids who are like sent back to the people that basically kind of molded them into being the person that they wanted them to be. And they are in direct, like, not bravado, but trying to find how that person that was on the Athena the week before and saved the kids there, and that person was here being said, oh, you're driven by fear, or oh, you're gonna marry whatever her name is, how to reconcile these, like, leader and these decision making smart, grown cadets, and that child that their parents want to see in a certain way. Again, there's good ideas, but I feel like they didn't go for it. Like, that would have been actually linking the plots on this would have been super interesting. And I'm just here, like, after watching it 3 times and talking for an hour and a half with you guys, being like, this is what it is about. And I feel also that in the end of the episode, and that's one of my pet peeves, we're back at the beginning of the episode. So Darum, we didn't know he was going to get married, got married, didn't get married, is back to not being married. We didn't know she was going to the pre-common track. She gets to the pre-common track. Well, she's not going to the pre-common track, so she's not in the pre-common track. So I'm like,
we're all back to zero.
No, they are not back to zero. They have gone through character development.
Yeah, but that character development, like, is basically for Darum not addressed, and I suppose they're gonna address it in the episode after that, and they're gonna continue working on it. And for Genesis, well, she gets like hours of community service with Caleb, and I feel the one that has like clear growth in the episode and like realizes the growth and talks about his growth is Caleb and Terima. Anyway, at the end, we're back in the academy and back to zero, I wrote, but yeah, we grew. Darum is still unmarried and apparently still an asshole, which I did not understand why they were so sad about calling him an asshole. What did he do? He didn't do anything. Genesis still has our own issues and not anymore on the pre-common track. Kyle is sunburned. Caleb finally sends a beautiful heartfelt message to Terima. It is about the cadet we met along the way. Last thought, we're gonna go Hawk and Emcee.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment compared to last week's episode, but and yes, it did need a lot more fleshing out as far as the plot, but at the same time, still like the episode. If they made it 10 minutes longer, I think they probably could have made it much more solid. But I wasn't exactly disappointed by it. It was a lot more sedate, and yes, it didn't have a lot of the, the beautiful camera work that we have been admiring in some of these episodes and that. But no, I'm still on board on this show. And yeah, this episode will just be, one of those episodes.
I really liked this episode. I thought it was a good character study on these characters. And that's something that we don't really get a whole lot in modern Star Trek because they're constantly like move, move, move. So taking an episode where it's really just looking at the motivation of two characters that we haven't yet, I really appreciate that. And since I forgot to mention it at the beginning of the episode, I absolutely love the line, "Why are you taking so many boots? You don't wear shoes."
Oh, yeah, the whole thing. I felt so seen about
Yeah.
that
Forgot about that.
that packing thing. If you've seen me pack any time in your life, you know I'm a terrible packer, and I will have four pairs of shoes that I'm not gonna wear. Uh, yeah, I found the episode dull. I don't think it was offensive. I don't think it was bad. I just felt that this, compared to what they've given us before, it was just like such a change of pace and just like kind of lackluster, and then also not really going deep in like questions that I thought they were asking and was super interesting. I would definitely would prefer having a full Darum episode and a full Genesis episode. I feel they got a bit like shortchanged, and I'm a bit sad because I really like Darum and I really like Genesis, and you know, when I have to write half of the episode by myself in my head to make everything glue together, I'm just like, are you not paying me, Star Trek? Why am I? Why am I writing the episode?
One
But
day.
yeah, huh?
One day.
With what money? But yeah, I just felt it was duller than the other episode. I think it has great ideas, and I think it could have gone in like really interesting places. So yeah, aggressively fine, to quote MC.
Yep.
Yeah, aggressively
Yes.
fine. To me. Okay. Well, this is almost it. Yeah, mailbag. Let's go to the mailbag. Did it work? It didn't work. Again.
Hailing frequencies open.
There it is.
Did it work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't hear it. Great. MC, can you take Christian S?
Christian S. wrote, "Love the fact that we got pairings that weren't there just to develop romance subplots. Also, Warp Slug, this is what happens to the Paris Janeway kids with 10 centuries of development."
Yes, lizard babies. Hawk, can you take Simon?
Sure. Simon wrote, fantastic character episode. In my opinion, more of the Starfleet Academy should be like this, exploring daily life and diversity in people's backgrounds, vices, passions, mistakes, and personal discovery as they come together as a team. The Academy is a place where we have many different people wanting to come together to be able to go out and explore and help the galaxy, especially in a post-burn era where a lot of healing needs to happen. I think this episode really highlighted that well.
I'm gonna take Erik the Red. Erik the Red wrote a much neater breather episode after the last few weeks, which turned into a great character episode to flesh out other characters like Darum and Genesis. Kyanian culture is a fun addition to the 32nd century era Trek and intrigues me the same way Querjan did in Disco. Caleb and Genesis literally doing lower decks shenanigan was fun, leading to a literal trying to get all data and material regarding Genesis from the bridge plot. Not the best episode this season in terms of impact, but a fun one regardless. MC, can you take JMC?
JMC Trek wrote, "Darum's plot in this episode had potential diplomatic incident written all over it at the start, but I enjoyed the character development we got from him in this episode. My heart broke for him at the end. I just wish his coping mechanism wasn't to immediately go back to asshole comments."
Thank you. Hawk, can you take Dana?
Sure. Dana wrote, not my favorite episode of the season, but still really fun. Genesis and Caleb getting into shenanigans and letting a warp slug escape was the perfect amount of chaos. Tig added to the comedy, but did we really have to put Caleb back in clothes? I demand more underwear. I demand more underwear called Caleb.
Glad, I think.
Clad. There we go. Clad Caleb in my Starfleet Academy.
I'm gonna take Emily Ree. Emily Ree wrote, "This was disappointing. I would even call it boring. I think a lot of that has to do with the Darim storyline. I'm not the least bit interested in that character, so everything on Kionia was boring. Not even Jaden could save it. I get what they were trying to do, but they didn't succeed, and we ended up with a rather bland episode. This is the weakest one. This is the weakest of the season, and a disappointment coming off the past 3 episodes, which were all fantastic." I printed the outline. Is there one more
Yeah.
in there? Okay,
There
MC, can
is
you take the last one, please?
There is one from Dave Prime. After last week's banger episode, as mentioned earlier, we got a bit of a breather this week. However, this late in the short season, it falls flat. The Darum storyline smelled of a mock time, just without the sharp weaponry. I would have loved to see more of Genesis and Caleb chasing the warp slug, and we'll have to watch the episode again just to listen to Laura and Jet's kerfuffle. I also echo Dana's demand for more underwear-clad Caleb. Rawr.
Thank you, everyone. That is all for our review of 107. Cosine, I will see you next week to review 108. Live long and prosper. Sarcastic Vulcan salute. Majram. I'm gonna end